More than 80% of the population in Ukraine is traumatized now. What does it mean living in a country at war? There is a huge need for the population living in Ukraine that is growing, a need that is not only material but spiritual. This situation is particularly difficult for the local church. People need to heal their wounds. Unfortunately, the situation is getting worse in Ukraine, even though the news that we receive talk often about politics, about war, military situation on the field. There is a huge need for the population living in Ukraine that is growing, a need that is not only material but spiritual, psychological assistance, as most of the bishops that we met during our frequent visits to the country have stressed. People need to heal their wounds before any other need. Since the beginning of the war, right one day after the beginning of the war on February 24, 2022, ACN was present to support the Church with emergency aid for all the dioceses, eparchies in the country. We provided help to priests, sisters, to communities, and a huge amount of funds were also given to the IDPs, the internally displaced people in Ukraine, which raised up to the number of 7 million in 2022 in the first 5-6 months of the war. In 2023, this help has evolved. We didn't help anymore for this emergency, but we continued to be beside the local church in this great challenge that they're facing. The support to priests, sisters, to seminarians, more than 600 that we help every year. And we started also to support a program of trauma healing for many of the people that returned from war or the families that faced a very difficult situation because of the prolonged war in the country. Sometimes it's difficult to understand what does it mean really living in a country at war. And ACN, with the visits and with the reception of many guests at our headquarters in Germany, could witness how dramatic is the situation for individual people, not just for one people, for the people in Ukraine, for each single people living in this dramatic situation. Usually we focus on the events, on the battlefield, on the global economic situation in a country at war. But we must not forget, and this is the mission of ACN, to accompany people in their daily work, in their daily life. People that lost parents, relatives, friends, or they live in a constant uncertainty because they are not far from the battlefield, from the front line, or because they don't know when the family that is living abroad could come back in the country. And this situation is particularly difficult for the local church. We know witnesses of many priests that have to celebrate funerals almost every day for soldiers that were killed on the battlefield. This is a dramatic situation. It is not in the news, but this is exactly what ACN is understanding by following the life of the church in Ukraine. The whole region of eastern Ukraine is still constantly under high pressure. Not only the regions very close to the front line, but the whole region on the left bank of the Dnipro River are actually living in very difficult condition. If we think that there is no possibility for children to go to school, they still, after 2 years, have just online lessons, and they have, when they can gather, they can always interrupt their lessons because of the fire, the alarms, the bombing alarms. We can understand how it's very difficult to go on with daily life in these places. we should also consider that other regions, also in the south, are constantly bombed, under attack, and there are victims also in the regions of Kherson, on Odessa, as well as in the east, in the Donetsk or the Kharkiv region. We received today a visit of a bishop from Ukraine, from the eparchy of Buchach, that told us that the Greek Catholic Church, the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, has developed a program, a kind of partnership between each one of the eparchies in West Ukraine with at least one parish in the east of the country. So they adopt one parish in the region of Kharkiv, Odessa or Donetsk, and there they just not build a new church or just provide some help to the people, but even send a priest from their jurisdictions to be present there and to build a new community. There was a very powerful witness about a community in Izium, a city in the east of the country. It was for 6 months under Russian occupation. Before the war, there was just a small Ukrainian Greek Catholic community of up to 20 people. Now, after this horrible experience of the occupation, more than 150 people are there. So there is a growth of the communities that need everything. This is just one of the examples of how the Church is caring about these regions. We can add many other cases also of the Latin Church in Kharkiv, as well as in Zaporizhia, where help to the population living 20-30 kilometers far from the front line is crucial for the survival of the communities. The Church has been active from the first day in helping people to have hope. People that came from eastern Ukraine and had to start a new life in a place where they didn't have a house, they didn't have a job, and in many cases where the families were separated, with the men in the front and the women in the country, in another place, or even abroad with the children. This was a situation, and this is still a situation that originated many traumas. When we had a meeting with Monsignor Shevchuk, the head of the Greek Catholic Church in Kiev, last year, he told us that official statistics were mentioning that more than 80% of the population in Ukraine is traumatized now. And he was telling us this last year. I would say that now, with no exception, people suffer a kind of trauma in the country. Soldiers that come back from the front, when they manage to be without visible wounds, they are often traumatized. They cannot start again the life in the family as it was before. That brought also to separations in the family, because the man came back being another person after the traumas that they lived. If we think what can mean just to stay in company of other people and then just missing them after one day, seeing many scenes of murder, of people that die suddenly without any explanation, we can have an idea of which trauma these people can have. And this is something that comes to the whole family they have. This is the mission of the Church in Ukraine, to support them, to heal and to stay together in spite of this situation. The Church supports also on the front line with the army, with the presence of military chaplains. We know that many of the soldiers, much more than in the past, go to confession quite frequently, because they know that they don't know how long their life could be. And the presence of a priest with them is absolutely important to save their souls. Sometimes people that never had an experience with the Church before, they find conversion in this so challenging, dramatic situation. This is often the opportunity for people to discover the presence of God in their life. It happened in the front line as well as with many people that escaped from the places close to the front line or in occupied regions, that were hosted in religious houses where with sisters or priests they had the first experience of meeting Jesus Christ. We estimated that last year about 30% of our aid went to eastern Ukraine, which is quite significant if we consider that most of the houses of the structure of the church in Ukraine is present in the west, where the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church is very strong and solid with a historical presence, and even the Latin Catholic Church with Polish origins had a base since centuries. In the east, most of the population were either Orthodox or atheistic. In this situation, it's very important to see how the church is approaching these people and giving them a kind of hope, allowing them to have a contact with religion, which is something that they never experienced before. Our help is made concrete also with through vehicles. It is very significant help, more than 1 million euros that we provided last year as well as in 2022. Ukraine is a very wide country, and especially in the east where the communities of the church are quite small and isolated, it's very important to have at disposal a vehicle to visit all of them. And there are many priests that even in dangerous areas every day they face this challenge and they move and reach this community to support them with material aid, but also with the comfort of the prayer.